Hill to Wall Street. This is Politics and Profits with your host, Rick Amato.
Welcome, everybody. I'm Rick Amato. It's time for Politics and Profits.
We follow the trends on Capitol Hill that lead to the profits on Wall Street. We expose the hard facts of what your elected officials are doing when you're not looking. And we show you how you can profit from their politics. The American dream is alive and well, and you can be proud to call America your home. And now, it's Rick Amato.
Welcome to Politics and Profits. This is the show where we cover money, politics, and current events. And I cannot think of one story more glaring that covers all three: money, politics, and current events than that of the coronavirus, and specifically that of Dr. Anthony Fauci in the news, which has come out here recently. My good friend Tucker Carlson covered this story recently, where it appears that Dr. Fauci was hiding email and lying to the American public about the origins of the coronavirus. Join me this time, traveling on the road from Portland, Oregon, is the author of the book, the best-selling book, The Origin of Civilization. Let me welcome back to the show David Klinkenberg. David, welcome back to Politics and Profits.
Thank you so much, Rick. It's great to be here.
Get our viewers up to speed on exactly what happened. Fauci appears to have been lying, and some say he's under investigation, possibly.
Yeah, and I did want to focus on a slightly different interview that just took place on the Martha McCallum show on The Story with Francis Collins. He was, of course, as you know, the head of the NIH, and he was pinned down. I mean, I don't think Fauci has been pinned down on any interview like Collins was by McCallum. So if you get to see the interview, it really did send a shiver up my spine, because the thing that I want to point out is the claim that he made. He pretended to claim that he could determine the intent of the Wuhan lab. He said he thought that it was an abject conspiracy theory that it accidentally leaked, and that he didn't say that it was a conspiracy theory that it may have accidentally leaked. He said that it was a conspiracy theory that they did it intentionally. And he said he could tell by the way the virus was made, by the viral genome, that this wasn't done intentionally. And what's so fascinating about that is, and I think people should take note, is that from my view, obviously we're not scientists, but this almost has to be a lie. Basically what he's claiming is that he can tell whether the person who pulled the trigger meant to pull the trigger or accidentally pulled the trigger based on the contents of the bullet. It would be like if you walked into a grocery store with a vial of virus in your hand. If you purposely threw that viral content into the grocery store to kill everyone, or if you accidentally tripped and it fell and broke and killed everyone, he claimed he could tell your intention based on the contents of that vial. And do you see how that there's no way that they could he tried to pretend that he knows for a fact that China did not do this on purpose based on the sequence of the virus itself.
And do
you see how that's impossible?
It's impossible, and it raises, as you say, David, all sorts of red flags and suspicions. The question becomes why? Why are they trying to hide the intention here? What are your thoughts?
The reason why they're trying to hide the intention is because China is very clever. There is ample suspicion. I mean, this is the question of our time. The most important question of our generation and of our time is: did that virus come out of that lab? Because if it came out of the lab, which it most certainly did, we are a giant leap closer to asking the question whether they did this on purpose. If they intentionally released a bioweapon, then we have some clue of what kind of an enemy we're dealing with. We're so far away from recognizing that China was willing to do this purposely, even though we have conceded the fact that they took active measures to ensure the pandemic would occur. What's so interesting is the people have backed up to the position of, I think that it's impossible that they would have produced this and released it on purpose. But we know that they closed down domestic travel and left open international travel, that they purposefully manipulated their trade documents so that we wouldn't know that they were hoarding medical equipment before anybody knew that this pandemic was occurring.
Wow.
So they falsified trade records so that we wouldn't know that they were taking a position so that they would be in a position to effectively navigate this virus. And then there's the big question of Tedros. I looked up Tedros recently, just so I could be prepared for these conversations. Tedros was appointed in 2017. Just 2.5 years before the virus broke out, China pulled out every stop. They'd never done this before. It was unprecedented in their history. They pulled out every stop to get their man appointed to the head of the WHO. They spent millions of dollars. They lobbied everyone. They pulled every single political lever they could to get Tedros appointed to the head of the WHO. And one of the first appointments that Tedros made when he was the head of the WHO, I don't know if you even know this, Rick, one of the first appointments he made was he appointed Robert Mugabe, right, the head of the goodwill ambassador of the WHO. The goodwill ambassador he appointed, essentially the Kim Jong-un of the African continent. Robert Mugabe, most people who don't even know anything about African politics have heard that name because he's considered to have murdered almost 3 million people.
That's right.
You're looking at one of the longest strings of tyrannical rule in the world, and Tedros appoints this guy as the goodwill ambassador of the WHO. So when you look at China's actions with Tedros, this strongly indicates that if we now know it came out of that lab, they were planning this. You think that's just a coincidence?
David, you bring up some very important questions, very important points, which I'm not hearing about elsewhere in the media, particularly combining the fact that they shut down domestic travel, allowed international travel. I've heard that, but never connected with this point that was it a purposely developed biological leak?
Was it purposeful bioweapon or was it accidental? And I think we are a long way closer to determining that this was a purposeful attack. And once you know it's a purposeful attack, all of a sudden, all those coronaviruses that showed up in frozen foods, this opens up a world of possibilities as far as why the United States was the first, why we did have so many cases so early on. Why we did have 500,000 cases. If they were sending it here, I'm not saying that but my point is once you know it came out of that lab, and we are so much closer to determining that they did this on purpose. Remember, Dr. Li Mingyang, she stated in 3 reports, she's a Chinese virologist, she has stated on the record that she knows for a fact that they created this in that lab as a bioweapon. In fact, one of the things that she pointed out, I noticed you mentioned Tucker Carlson. One of the things she pointed out on Tucker Carlson, because of her thick accent, I don't think he noticed. And this is a very important point. She specifically claimed that if they were trying to create a vaccine, that they could have created a virus in the lab that wasn't deadly. She said it would be like if you were creating a gun and you had bullets and you were doing it for benign purposes, you would take out the bullet. You could use blanks. So she specifically said as a virologist that if you were doing this for benign purposes, you could have created a virus that wouldn't have caused a pandemic. So the only thing left is that they were creating this for ill-begotten.
David Klinkenberg, we're out of time. I wanted to let you go because you brought up some very valuable information, made some great points. I love the way you tied it all together. Next time we have you on, David, I want to talk about the American mainstream media, or as Andrew Breitbart used to call them, the Democrat media complex. They called people like yourself and myself and Tucker Carlson conspiracy theorists for believing that this was designed in a lab and purposely or accidentally let go, as opposed to going from a bat to a human. The American media is at fault here too. David Klinkenberg, author of The Origin of Civilization, very timely, very valuable information. We thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Broadcasting from the Liberatory CPA studios. Back with more after this.
Politics and Profits with Rick Amato is brought to you by Liberatory Accounting, the IRS problem solvers. To find out how Liberatory Accounting can help you, call 877-6-SOLVER. That's 877-6-SOLVER.